Direct quote, isn't it, Eric Crocker, former NFL DB, locked on 49ers, quote, "The Bears are trash." Is that right, Eric?
He was talking a little crazy, and I'm like, come on, man, we're talking about the Bears right now.
I mean, the Bears, I hope, are who we think they are, to sort of, evolve an old quote. But I'm with you. Like, the start this year for Trey Lance, it feels like on paper a pretty soft landing for him, right, with the Bears and the Seahawks right out of the gate.
I would say if you are rooting for Trey Lance and want him to do well, that's probably the most favorable start that you could have. Again, you never know. You got to play the game. The Bears could shock everyone. But I'd say between the Bears and the Seahawks, they have a lot more question marks than some of the other teams that will be coming up on the 49ers schedule.
Trey Lance will make his third career start against Chicago, but he's not a rookie. How much do we have to raise the bar for Trey Lance, knowing that he spent a whole year last year as a pro football player?
It's tough because I think, this year, especially the start of it, will just be him getting more experience, like the live in-game experience, the ability to really make mistakes and learn from it. I think that's one thing he missed out on last year. Obviously, he had to start week 5, and then he had another start week 17. But, just having mistakes from week to week and being able to learn and grow from it, I think he missed that. So he will be able to have that opportunity a little this year, but definitely a lot more pressure taking over a team that went to the NFC Championship game as opposed to the 2020 team he was taking over or would have taken over that, they won, 6 games that year?
Yep.
So a lot more pressure this year based on the results of last season.
Eric, we'll circle back to Trey Lance in a sec, especially with your time as a former defensive back. Wanted to ask you about Jimmie Ward. Here's what Kyle Shanahan said yesterday about the injury.
Yesterday, Jimmie Ward pulled his hamstring, so a little worse than the other guys, so he's going to be some time.
Is there a chance he won't be ready for week 1?
Yeah, it was a pretty bad hamstring injury, and it's not like the other 2 guys, so we'll see over here over the next couple of weeks how it plays out.
Yeah, so he used the word pull. He said it's pretty bad. Give us a sense through your eyes the importance of Jimmie Ward to this team.
Oh, man, he's huge. The versatility he brings, the different things you're able to do with him in coverage, and how it kind of really makes it a lot easier for a guy like DeMeco Ryans to call different schemes and coverages and whatnot. Whether it's too high, single high, they do a lot of things in man coverage with him on slot receivers, tight ends. I'd say from a versatility standpoint, there's probably maybe a handful of safeties, 1, 2 other guys that can do some of the things that Jimmie Ward does. I think right now he finally got a little respect landing on the top 100. But even then, if he was a guy that was pulling in like 4 or 5 interceptions in a season, he'd be much higher because of what he's asked to do. So you lose that, you're taking a big piece of the puzzle from that secondary, especially with all the different things they ask him to do on a play-to-play basis. I think it's huge not having him, and hopefully he comes back a little bit sooner than expected.
How would that affect the ability for the defense to blitz as much as they'd like? Last year they were 19.8%, fourth least in the NFL. Does his absence change the way you call your defenses?
Well, I think, you kind of hit the nail on the head right there, right? They're a team that didn't call for a whole lot of blitzes. Now, why didn't they do that? Maybe they didn't trust the guys on the outside. So, for a lot of the season, you have some young guys in there, Ambry Thomas, Yamador Lenore, Josh Norman had to play a ton of snaps, and they probably were like, let's not leave these guys on an island too much. Let's not bring too many blitzes. We're going to play a little bit softer coverage, play guys 7, 8 yards off, and keep everything in front of us. Well, when you have guys like Emmanuel Mosley and Trevarius Ward, it's like, now we have guys where we can play more man coverage, especially if a guy like Samuel Womack continues to grow and, what he's doing. So that would really free a guy like Jimmie Ward to do more and for DeMeco Ryans to call more blitzes. But then now you lose a guy like Ward potentially, and we'll see how long that is. I think that changes it back to, dang, we might have to play a little softer. They tried to do a zero blitz in the preseason game against Green Bay, and Tarvarius Moore, he kind of was left out on the island. We saw the results. It ended up being a touchdown. And instead of Moore being out there, if you have a healthy Jimmie Ward, well, that's Jimmie Ward in the slot. And you feel more comfortable calling a play like that. So, I think that right there kind of shows a little bit of some of the issues that can happen when you don't have a Jimmie Ward out there, kind of the snowball effect of it.
Eric Crocker is with us, former NFL DB, Locked On 49ers, local guy. Glad to have him with us. Eric Dibs and I, just a few minutes ago, were kind of rolling through the NFC, and this was based on some comments that Lo Neal made with us yesterday, where he's like, we got to stop this whole Trey Lance is brand new. The 49ers can win this year. They should make the playoffs. And we went through the NFC and eliminated basically all but 9 teams going for 7 spots. We got the Eagles, we got the Cowboys, Packers, Vikings, Bucks, 49ers, Cardinals, Rams. Are we being unfair? Do you see anybody hiding in the weeds in the NFC?
It's tough, right? You see Hard Knocks and you see Lions and kind of what they're building there. You would assume that it's a team that's not really primed to be a playoff team, but you never know. I mean, just a couple years ago, we were talking about a 49er team that went from the number 2 overall pick to the Super Bowl. So adding some pieces, continuing to kind of build that continuity with a team, Dan Campbell putting his staple on this team and getting guys in there that fit and play the way that he wants them to. You watch Hard Knocks and you see Williams breaking down the huddle and crying because he cares so much. You get enough guys that care, you can kind of make a run for it. So I'm not, predicting that with the Lions, but I think every year we see teams that go from one of the worst teams in the league to, all of a sudden it's a team fighting for a playoff spot.
Do you see Arizona as a team that is on the way up or on the way down? It seemed like early on in the year, last year, they were something undefeated through 7, and then they faded. Is that more the team we should expect from Arizona this year?
That's a team that's definitely talented. They have one of the more talented quarterbacks in the league, but they're missing something, right? A lot of people talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. I know there's a lot of different things flowing out there right now about leadership and whatnot, but when you talk to his teammates about him, everyone loves his leadership abilities, and they follow him. I don't think you get that with Kyler Murray. So although he's extremely talented and teams will be lucky to have him from that standpoint, he's lacking something in the leadership department where, how much does he truly care? And I think in the biggest of moments, and we saw that in the playoffs last year where he had like a terrible performance, that lack of leadership, that lack of focus, that lack of drive to like be great, I think it shows up. So the Cardinals, although they do have a lot of talent, I think they're going to kind of still be in that same place of a team that is more of a wild card when really they should be one of the best teams in the league with their quarterback. But I just don't see it happening, whether it's the head coach and how he, leads that team or really the quarterback who I think has a bigger hand in it.
Eric, I know you watch every snap with this team. What are you worried about right now?
I'd say most people heading into the year, there were a couple of spots, right? And every team is going to have their question marks. Every team is going to have the things that they're like, okay, can you mask this? Obviously, you have to start with the quarterback, and I'm not saying I'm worried about it, but we just don't know. He can play amazing and be a league MVP, or he can just be kind of fairly average or even below average. And we saw a lot of that from some of the younger quarterbacks last year. I think only one quarterback that played most of the season threw more touchdowns and interceptions. A lot of the other guys, they kind of struggled. Now the 49ers have great coaching. They have great players, so maybe they can match that, and maybe the quarterback won't be an issue. All right, so if we're taking the quarterback out of it, then I'd say interior offensive line was a huge question mark. We're talking about 3 positions there on the interior from right guard, center, and left guard with 3 new players. So how are they going to play right now? You look at the kid, Spencer Burford, out of UTSA. He has been awesome. I watched him again. When I rewatched and I focused more so on him and Aaron Banks, I thought they played well. I thought Burford played even better than Aaron Banks, who's the second-year guy there. So if he can do that against starters, then you got something there, right? So, but the interior, that was a big question for me. The nickel spot, and right now it looks like they really like Samuel Womack. We'll see if he can take over that. And then maybe strong safety with Talanoa Hufanga, because you've had Jaquiski Tartt play for so many years, and you knew what you were getting from him. He was a good football player for the Niners. Those were kind of my bigger question marks. But one thing that I kind of rely on when it comes to the 49ers is they are an extremely well-coached team. They are very well-coached. So regardless of if there's something that they kind of have to mask, and we saw them do that with the outside cornerbacks for most of last season, the coaches put these players in positions to win. So although there are question marks on the roster, I think they have the coaches and enough elite players to be able to overcome that.
Eric, great stuff, man. Really fun to have you on. Thank you so much for making the time.
All right, thanks for having me on, guys.
Okay, there he is, Eric Crocker, the Croc Man on Twitter.